The International Association for Near-Death Studies presents NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Witting.
Welcome to NDE Radio, brought to you by IANDS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I'm your host, Lee Witting. Well, I've just returned from this year's terrific IANDS conference near Philadelphia with a list of terrific guests for you to look forward to. And top of the list today is an old friend and repeat guest of NDE Radio, PMH Atwater. She's just released an intriguing new book titled The Forever Angels, Near-Death Experiences in Childhood and Their Lifelong Impact. PMH is a multiple near-death experiencer herself and has been researching near-death states since 1978. And while she has researched and authored 18 books on the subject, she tells us the generational research in this book has never been done before. About the Forever Angels, PMH writes, I call this book The Forever Angels because it is an in-depth look at tiny ones who are forever part of where they left. If you count both of the studies I have done with child experiencers of near-death states, the total is 397, angels all. These two studies show that no matter how long child experiencers live, the vast majority never lose their sense of home. PMH, welcome back to NDE Radio.
Well, it's my privilege to be here. Yes, that conference was just incredible.
Wasn't it? That was amazing. The speakers and the people who were there. I have a pretty extensive list of people I want to talk to on this show.
Well, I bet you do. You know, it's the biggest we've ever had.
Over 400, they said.
Oh, 450, I think, were registered, and 480 was the estimate given for those that just came in to help. Wow,
that's amazing. The PMH, your book tells us that adults and children display similar NDEs and after effects, but they are worlds apart in that little ones have no before. And what do you mean by that?
Well, simply no before. I mean, their mind is not cluttered or affected by television, by mom and dad, by the dog barking on the street. They don't know any of that kind of thing. This is all very, very new to them. And they're coming in with a mindset that's still where they were. So therefore, they can't compare anything because they don't have any before.
So when this opens up to them, it's like looking back. It's being back at home again.
Well, it's a confusing state. Some of them have a lot of fun with it because they're going in and out of the body and they're exploring all kinds of notions about a father, a mother, maybe siblings, maybe the dog next door, and they have a lot of out of body trips. And bear in mind for your listeners, an out of body experience is not a psychic phenomenon. Forget psychism. With children, the paranormal is normal. Out-of-body experiences are like maybe taking a walk out the door and coming back in again. It's just that simple to them. It's just that normal to them. And it's nothing at all for one of these children. Maybe they're in their bassinet or maybe they're on the couch. And they are searching the family house to see where everybody is. They see their dad coming in on a car in the driveway. Maybe that mom is ironing in the kitchen. Maybe a sibling is playing in an upstairs bedroom. And they'll see all of this. They'll actually go there and view so that they feel more at home in the sense that they know where everybody is and they know what they're doing.
This must be part of the learning experience, too.
Well, for them, it's exploring, but it's also a matter of feeling better about being in a body.
Yes. What made you think of comparing the generational differences between the old and the young NDEers?
Well, we could call it anger, if you wish. My first study was done in the 80s and 90s with a book, The New Children and Near-Death Experiences. So if you want to get a hold of that first study, you're going to get a lot of material and a lot of drawings, and that was between birth and the age of 15 years, but very few of the teens or tweens ever participated. It was mostly those under 7, and the largest amount of those that participated had their experience between birth and 15 months and 3 to 5 years. Therefore, I could use that older study then to compare with this one. And with that older study, I was interviewing people or being with people from kindergarten age up to the early 20s and beyond, but mostly younger people looking forward in life. They were looking ahead, certainly backward, yes, from where they came, but mostly looking ahead in life. And then with this second, I found a 21% suicide prone or ideation prone rate. And that bothered me. It's like, what? We don't think of suicide ideation with near-death cases. We think that, this shields people from that kind of thing. But with adults, my research based with suicide ideation is around 5%. So it's not that many, a few, but not that many. With my first batch with children, it was 21%, and I was starting to find all of these anomalies, with the brain and learning and all this kind of thing. And I was just, going around wondering, hey, other researchers, wake up, everybody. I found this very high suicide ideation rate. And I couldn't get anybody interested in doing in-depth work on children. They just wouldn't do it. So, years pass, and I'm starting to get a little, grumpy about this kind of thing because, the out-of-mouth of babes syndrome, we all suffer from that. Suffer in the sense of we love these stories. Wow, the innocent that tell these incredible stories. And out of the mouth of babes, wow. But who does follow-up?
Right.
We've got
who takes it seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah, like invisible friends and that sort of thing. We just laugh
and
at
coming back like 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, who's doing any follow-up? So I finally just got tired of this and decided, okay, it's time for me to revisit this. But this time, I wanted people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s who could verify having had an experience between birth and the age of 5. And I asked the question, did this early experience have any effect on your life? So I wanted the whole span, family, siblings, school, dating, sex, sports, and going up into the career years and the adult years and, falling in love and getting married and having children and even having grandchildren. Did it make any difference? So in essence, I guess you could say I was asking for an essay, but I also went back many times by phone or email or whatever to question, the kind of feedback I was getting. And I'll tell you, Lee, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked at the feedback I got and the stories I got from these people. Not only did it make a difference, but it made a huge difference in ways I would have never, ever thought.
Wow. Well, your book is chock full of really interesting stories, accounts of different ways that they experienced their NDEs, and the effects that they had afterwards. You mentioned a difference. One difference is that most adults integrate their experience in 7 to 10 years, and most young children take 20 to 40 years.
Right. Sometimes 50.
Yeah. Well, as a 7-year-old who drowned myself, it took me a long, long time to
I can believe it.
To integrate.
I can believe it.
And so I could really resonate with that. And I wonder, do you suppose it's because when you're talking to adults who had these experiences as children that it was so long ago that, the society's acceptance of these stories was much less back then than it is now? Do you suppose that had any effect on?
Well, maybe, but I rather think that if you have a near-death experience as a very young child, especially as a baby or toddler, but even up to 5, maybe 7 years old, you really don't have an idea of what a human being is. And you get your feedback from school and siblings and parents and friends, but it doesn't really fit. And especially in school, that's a biggie in school, because most of these kids know more than their parents do. They know more than their school teachers do. They are subject to a lot of bullying, or they just don't fit. And
Yes.
They're spending a lot of time compensating or somehow trying to find a way to fit, and they just don't fit. And so they grow up feeling, it's like this veil or this mist that they're looking at the whole world, and it doesn't match their idea of what the world is.
Yeah. I can
Does that
resonate
kind of
with
fit?
that.
Does that kind of fit, Lee?
It fits my experience for sure. Yes, it does. Did you find that the kids you talked to pretty cooperative in talking about these things?
Oh my. It's as if a door opened for them that they never had any idea would ever open up in their lives. Finally, somebody wanted their story, and they poured and they poured and they poured. It was no accident that I would get essays, if you will, that were maybe 40 pages long, maybe 50 pages long,
Wow.
huge, sometimes with family photos, many of them so tear-stained that I couldn't hardly read them. And some of them, when I was reading them myself, I was teared up just reading them myself. It's just like, this one guy who is now retired, and I was asking for this very intimate story of I think his experiences was like 10 months or something, and he was so overjoyed finally to have someone who would listen to him, that he just went, I mean, I couldn't hardly stop him for about 6 to 8 months. He kept sending more and more and more and more material. He just, he finally found somebody who'd listen to him.
What a treat for you to have invited all this material and then to have it flowing in like this. It must have been very rewarding.
Well, it was rewarding, but it was also scary, because I was looking at these stories and it's just it was so overwhelming to me that I almost didn't know what to do with them at first. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know because my emotions got in the way. And then, the researcher mode takes over. I had three of these people who were raised in the voodoo religion. That is to say, they'd never heard of Jesus, never heard of God, G-O-D, never heard of that, never heard of the Bible, never heard of any Christian. They were raised voodoo. And each one, in their near-death experience, were visited by Jesus. They knew who Jesus was, and they knew his name. It's like, what are you going to do with that? Wow. And then I had a number of them, a small number, fortunately, but who were raised in satanic cults. One in particular, her name is Judy. The only reason her parents ever got pregnant with her was to have a baby, a child that they could use in their rituals. So Yikes. That's the only reason they had her. And she had her first near-death experience at the age of 6 months. And she had 17, a total of 17, before or around the age of 9. So she was used constantly, either on altars or other modes. They were offering her to Satan. And can you imagine growing up in that? And of course, she had to deal with that when she survived, had to deal with that as a young woman and a lot of therapy, yes, but especially prayer and meditation, especially yoga. Yoga helped her a lot, and mindfulness training. And by the time she was in her, I think it was in her 30s, she married. She had 4 children of her own. She made sure that everybody had psychological counseling so that nobody got off track. And years of this, she has the most incredible family. Wow. Her husband stayed with her and through all this, and they had a very wonderful marriage, wonderful kids. And I look at her and I think, oh, gee, wow. What she went through and how she dealt with that, and she was able to forgive her parents. She was able to forgive her parents and walk on.
You'd think if we have a choice as to what family to be born in, that no one would choose a family like that, and yet maybe she foresaw that she was going to have a happy, successful marriage and her own children.
Well, she came to understand that she chose that kind of life to better understand people, what people go through, and to challenge herself more as a soul. And so she sure got it.
Yes. There's a bit of a discussion about demons in your book, too, of people thinking that that's an explanation for what's going on with kids?
Well, yeah. Some of them are visited by demons. Again, remember, the paranormal is normal for a child. So they're going to see all kinds of things. And certainly, they get visited by demons, just like anybody else can. But I love the story of this little boy. Oh, gee, he was maybe about 5 by then. And every time he went to the bathroom, there was this demon. And so finally, it was scaring me, you know. But finally, this one time, he decided, okay, I'm going to take charge of this. Got himself a baseball bat, went into the bathroom and you know, struck that demon, and the demon faded and never came back. And he was so proud of himself. You know, I did it. I got rid of him.
Terrific. That's terrific. I wanted to ask you, too, you said that there are 3 major lights that children see, radiant light, black or dark light, and a white light.
Well, you
Tell
know,
us about
I've
that.
been talking about this. This is not just children. I've been talking about this for decades, that a near-death experience is not a white light experience. A lot of people get into that a routine of calling a near-death experience a white light experience. It's a bright light experience. So we've got these 3 lights, and children, this really, really powerful light, raw, powerful, just incredible light. But it has no color. Then a lot of them have dark light or black light experiences. Some of them say it has purple tinges around it. And that dark or black light, there's something very comfortable, very cozy, very healing. This dark or black light is very, very healing and loving. And it's like a sanctuary. And then there's this very bright, or what a lot of adults call a white light, might have silver or gold in it, but a very, very bright light. And the kids are very specific about this. I love this. They say, well, that really bright light, that's father light. And that dark or comfy, cozy light, that's mother light. And that raw, powerful light, that's God's light. And that mother light and father light come from God's light. So they're very specific about that.
Interesting that they understand that, differentiate that way.
They do. You know, in the big book of near-death experiences, I have this, and there's a picture, a drawing in there of a man, an adult experiencer who was in the hospital, needed surgery, and was visited that night by this incredible black light. Came in, enveloped him, and the next morning, the reason for the surgery was gone. He didn't need surgery at all, and that's in the big book.
Wow.
Yeah, that dark or black light is just an incredibly powerful light.
And that would be the mother light, the feminine.
The kids call it the mother light. Yeah.
And that's the healing light. That's terrific.
Well, also, when I was looking for jumps in IQ, the biggest jump in IQ was for those children who had a dark or black light experience instead of the bright light.
Really?
So there's something very special about that light, and we need to look at that more.
That's interesting. you had said that 9 out of 10 children will see through parents, siblings, teachers, school kids.
I mean, it's really almost comical when you read their stories. And you'll love it in reading the book, The Forever Angels. Yeah. I mean, they know what's going on in their mother or their father's mind. They do. They'll know what is going on in the sibling's mind or so forth and so on. They pick it up right away. Sometimes they see it. They see their parents doing things. But mostly they clue into what their parents are thinking. So dads out there, beware. Your kid is in your brain.
So they're tapping in and they can see the hypocrisy when it's there.
Yep.
Well, that would be a scary thing for parents, I'm sure. Not that they intend to mislead their kids, but, there's always a do what I say, not what I do attitude.
Well, it's quite literal if you've got a child experiencer. And they know what's going on with you. If you're having, problems with money, if you're angry, if there's problems with mom and dad, they'll pick up on that right away. And they'll know. A lot of these kids, Lee, were born aware and awake. So that's very sobering. When you have a child that's being born, even if they're crying, they are aware and awake. They know what's going on. They know their parents, most of them, ahead of time. Or they are wondering what's going on. It's almost, I had a number of these experiencers say that being in the womb, it's almost like they're an adult in there. It's like they have an adult brain and they know what's going on.
Well, when you're on the other side, you're not a little child. You have the capacity. You have your full capacity. So I guess if they're in the womb but out of body, they would have that understanding.
A lot of them do. In fact, most of them do. And that causes all kinds of wrinkles in the family dynamic.
I'm sure. So out of the mouths of babes, it's just out of the mouth of another, fully developed human being sometimes, and they're not being given credit for. Well,
they may not have the
their spiritual maturity.
Yeah, they may not have the language yet, but they have the
maturity. Thought. Well, PMH, we are out of time for today, but I would like you to come back and be on next week's show too, if that's all right.
Oh, I'd love to.
Okay,
because there's so much more to say.
Yeah, we'll have more to say about Forever Angels and maybe get into the state of the world as well. I know you have written a lot in your newsletter about the way things are. My thanks again to PMH Atwater for today's show and next week's show in advance. For more on IANDS and recordings from the conference, please go to IANDS.org. If you'd like to listen to this show again or any of our past shows, just go to our website at nderadio.org and join us again next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, for more NDE Radio. This is Lee Witting saying thanks for listening.